You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show, the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. We don't have any new callers today, but we do have Kyle from Madison. What's up?
Kyle from Madison, what's up, Ryan? I need you to talk me off the cliff about something,
right,
man. I called in earlier this morning. It's evening time now, but I've been, I don't know which show this will be on, but in case it's in two different shows, I called in. I gave you some reasons to be pessimistic that a lot of people are talking about. I gave you some reasons to be optimistic in another call, and I've been trying to keep with the optimism, today, because I do truly believe there's a lot to be optimistic about. But here's where I'm just on the ledge. Because I can't swear any improvement, okay? Because I can see improvement everywhere. I can see that happening. That's very possible. We've seen it with this team. But let's just say everything that we don't like right now improves to the best that it can. The problem I'm having, kind of existentially with this Packers team is no matter how good we improve on defense and offense, the kicking game is going to screw our season. It just is. Because I kind of put the chances at, the chances, I guess your mileage may vary. In my mind, the chances that Narveson suddenly course corrects and becomes a competent kicker, that's all I want. Middle tier kicker, ranked 16, perfect. The chances that he does that, I'm putting it at 15%. You insert your own number there, that's fine. I'm saying, okay, it's 15% chance dude turns it around because it feels like he's going the wrong way. Okay, that means there's an 85% chance he doesn't. Now, I don't know if you've looked around or maybe you've even done a podcast episode on all the other kickers out there right now. There's nothing. Nothing. Those are just lotto tickets. That's nothing. You can't trot on the field with those guys. I mean, I'd argue you can't trot on the field with Narveson, but I just feel like there's an 85% chance that this dude stays how he is right now and he's not an NFL kicker. If you don't have home field advantage and a bye, you've got to win 4 games to get a championship in the postseason. The chances that you don't need to make big kicks in those 4 games is exactly 0. And so what I need you to do is explain to me why, Kyle, you're being, you're really being way too dramatic. It's not that bad. Okay, tell me why, because that's kind of where I'm at. The fact that we couldn't upgrade the kicking game, the thing that cost us probably a shot at the Super Bowl last year, right, or one of the things, it has cost us potentially 2 of both our losses this year. It just hasn't been upgraded. It's unforgivable. Please talk me into why the season isn't a wash and why I shouldn't immediately change my expectations to, maybe next year we'll be in a position to compete for a Super Bowl. Because, dude, I just can't, I can't make that make sense in my mind, how this is going to work. We need a freaking kicker. We don't have one. There aren't any. Okay, Ryan, go.
Well, couple things. First of all, let's just assume, as you said, everything does improve except the kicker. Let's just use that retroactively. If the offense and defense were at a level that was acceptable or good or however you want to phrase it, we would be 4-0 despite the kicking woes. So that's one thing. Not saying that it can't come back to bite us. And I'm certainly not trying to diminish it because, the problem is kickers are just like any other position. We can do this with any position. Let's say we get the kicker figured out, but we don't have that number 2 corner figured out. You're telling me that isn't a major problem? How many yards and touchdowns and everything else are given up because that guy can't cover? Especially when you get up against better teams who have presumably better number 2 wide receivers. What happens if we have a guard that can't block and is constantly giving up pressures? How many times is that going to bite us? I think kicker is as, what's the word? The biggest problem with the kicker is you can directly attribute points to the kicker. We can look at the kicker and say we lost 6 points because of the kicker. Definitively. That's where the points added thing kind of comes in because it's a way to kind of look at it and say, here's how many points you contributed or detracted from our team. as imperfect of a metric as it is, it kind of helps us quantify those things. So yeah, it sucks just as much as it sucks that, we're sitting here with a defensive line that can't get pressure, with another group that can't stop the run, with corners that can't cover, outside of Jair, in my opinion, an offensive line that can't run block, and a kicker that can't make field goals. All of these are issues, and all of them can contribute to us losing out on games. I don't want to pretend that, we can do anything. We can make anything work and overcome any issues, but that's the one thing that no team can ever overcome is a kicker missing field goals. I mean, if Jordan throws an interception and they go down and score, that could be a 14-point swing. 14 from one pass. How many kicks does it take that's 5 missed field goals before you get that bad. So that would be the first thing, is to not think that, for example, offense is offense, defense is defense, and special teams is special teams, where offense is good despite all the other issues. At the end of the day, when you tally it up, it all comes out good. Same with defense, but special teams is just that one thing, and if the kicker misses, then it's just all bad. I would break it down into each individual player succeeding or failing, and then the team as a whole, can it overcome that or not? And of course, there's always going to be situations when you get into the playoffs and lose, just like it was against San Francisco. You can pin it on the kicker. You could also pin it on a lot of people. You can put it on Jordan. You could put it on whoever else made mistakes in that game. Had they not made those mistakes, good chance we win that game. So a lot of it comes down to finding players that are going to be good enough to mitigate the mistakes. Now, as far as why haven't they found somebody, let's not forget, they just got this guy. And the reason they just got this guy was for the reason that you're talking about. They're trying to fix a problem. And they also tried to fix a problem when they drafted a kicker. So, yeah, they're not having success, which is, by the way, this is exactly what I said about the kicker situation when we had Mason, how serious it was when people get mad about drafting a kicker. It's like, do you see what happens to teams that don't have kickers and how long it takes for them to actually find one? They go through kickers and kickers and kickers and kickers, and they cannot find one. This is not an unusual or unique experience. This is what I said back when we had Mason about how serious it is, back when we drafted kickers and people got mad, and I was like, bro, you don't understand. This is a big deal. Do whatever it takes to find a guy that can make the kicks. So they did. They drafted a guy. Then they didn't like the guy they drafted, so they went out and got a new guy. That didn't work. And immediately this week, they're bringing in kickers to try out. And again, based on the quality of the kickers that came in, probably not going to replace Narveson because they're just not very good kickers. So I don't know if there's a solution out there. I just don't. Again, if it's me, I'm calling up a veteran. I don't know if that guy is Mason or not. I don't know his status. I don't know if he's been kicking or what. I know he's got a very comfortable life down in, I think, Tennessee right now with his family. Maybe he's just good right now. I don't know. I'm sure he had a sit down with Rich Bisaccia. I'm sure there was some talks about, we think we've identified the problem. And, maybe if you're Gutekunst, you're thinking, freaking, all right, we'll give him another shot. See what you can do with that whole plant leg thing. But he needs to get it figured out. And in the meantime, you're making as many phone calls as you can to try to figure out what the heck are we going to do if this doesn't work out. So it's frustrating that we don't have a kicker. It's a big issue because they're hard to replace, just like anybody, really. I mean, it's not like quarterbacks are easy to replace or wide receivers. I mean, you've seen, like I said, Baltimore for like a decade been trying everything to get wide receivers. Same with the Bears. I mean, they finally went out and paid some guys to come in and play wide receiver, but they drafted, they did everything. They couldn't find anybody. Offensive line. Remember Seattle and Minnesota as two teams that they would draft and there's 5 spots. And they would draft and draft and draft and draft and draft and draft and draft, and nobody could play. Not one guy out of 5 that they kept bringing in could play at an even competent level. It's not, there's no easy fix to any of this stuff. When you get to the point, which is why the draft and develop and the draft before you have a need thing is so important. Rather than drafting for need, you draft for value. So because everything at some point is going to become a need. So you bring people in, you're constantly to the point where you've got plan B ready to go. At least you try to as best as you can. Because other teams, they draft for need, and then something becomes an unexpected need, and you have nothing. And the process of trying to find something on the fly is really, 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 really difficult. And that's where we're at right now with kicker. That's part of the reason why, again, I don't like the idea that, well, you don't need to draft when you can find them in undrafted free agency. No. I understand that a lot of people that are good kickers have been undrafted free agents. And again, I say that or I acknowledge that because it's almost all kickers are undrafted free agents. For every 100 kickers that get a tryout somewhere in the NFL, how many were drafted compared to undrafted free agents? 5? So yeah, it's not super surprising that most kickers in the NFL, including the very good ones, were undrafted free agents. But still, that's not really the point when it comes to, we think this is the best guy, and he's not going to make it to undrafted free agency. Do we just say, oh, well, and let him pass and go see from some of the other guys if we can make it work? Or should we just take the swing and get this guy, lock him down because it's that important? But anyways, those are my thoughts based on what you had to say. It's not a good situation. Yes, it could be a problem, just like any other position can be a problem and can cost us points, even though, again, it's not directly. If Josh Myers misses a block and gives up a sack, no points go off the board. But they kind of do. You just can't see it. We can't see what happens or the reflection directly on a scoreboard, but there are implications. When McDuffie missed that pick, that cost us points. Even if we don't know exactly how many or what the exact result of that was, you could maybe call it 7 if you want. I don't really know how that would all work exactly, but it's a big deal. So every single play you're out there trying to earn points. Just think about it as everything building up to points or degrading into giving up points. And every single penalty that's given up, every sack that's given up, every third down conversion that's given up, these are points, even if it's not as easy to calculate as a missed field goal. So there's a lot that can and should and needs to improve, including the kicking, because you're right. I would put it probably even less than 15% that he becomes a good kicker. But that doesn't mean he's not going to be significantly better than an 0 for 2 kicker. I'm hopeful he can at least get back to being a 75% kicker, which is not great, but it's a manageable one, especially if you have a really good offense and a defense that's getting the job done. You can at least hopefully make it work. I don't know, but it's not really so much a disagreement as it is maybe a perspective shift that hopefully can help you not feel as bad, but I don't know.
Coach JV Snacks forgot his third point because he talked for 8 hours on the last 2 calls. But penalties, man, penalties.
Yeah.
One week it's the offensive line. Last week it was the defense, or Sunday, I guess yesterday. I feel like I was so used to the Packers being one of the most least penalized teams in the league.
Yeah.
For so long.
Well, that was just because the refs are in the Packers' pocket. You know what I mean? That's because the refs are a blah, 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 all that fake nonsense. Yeah, where are we at now? Was it Rodgers paying off the refs, and now that he's gone, like they're just penalizing him, or maybe that was just stupid to begin with because that wasn't the case.
It's just so foreign to me to think that we're in the top whatever tier of penalties. I just kind of figured that stuff was going to figure itself out. And we're getting kind of the point now where it's like, man, maybe it doesn't figure itself out. Maybe it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Well, I'll let you finish.
That's the last time I'll call until Sunday, and I'll start screaming, happy Monday, Pack people.
I think some of it will get figured. I don't think they're going to stay this bad. I think a lot of the teams that are really bad it's going to come down a little bit. Some teams are going to be more penalized than others. I think, when you look at some specific penalties, some of them are inexcusable and stupid and need to be fixed. Getting set on the line, things like that. Even, jumping off sides can, we saw Rasheed Walker was horrible and he didn't have a single penalty this past week. And he even mentioned it comes down to the refs are calling things different. So now I have to kind of change the way I block or whatever. I think some of the things will improve. Other ones, maybe not. For example, you look at some of the holding calls. Holding a lot of the time is just a lack of execution. When Tucker Kraft was holding on that Emmanuel Wilson run, the only reason he's holding is because he lost the block. And if you're not particularly good at something, unless the coaches explicitly tell you, which I think they should, just let him go. don't hold because you're going to cost us something. At the very least, even if that 10-yard run ends up being a 4-yard run, I would take a 4-yard run from Emmanuel Wilson and you giving up the tackle after that, then a 10-yard loss. Dum-dum. Don't do it. But you still have offensive linemen that'll hold because they're losing their blocks. Again, so holding is, in some cases, same with like defensive holding. That happens because the guy just completely destroyed you and you're about to fall on your face and you're like, I just got to grab the dude. Whereas if you're really good at your job and you can kind of stay in his hip pocket and you're not as worried about it, and maybe you can be a little bit more crafty where you just kind of hook the hip a little bit just to kind of slingshot yourself, just to kind of get caught up, but don't grab, don't pull the jersey. You're not going to get called for as many penalties. So some of the stuff might be a long-term deal, either because some people are just mentally unfit or because they're bad at their job and they're going to end up getting penalized more. But again, I think some of it will get cleaned up. I didn't look in terms of how bad it was compared to how it's getting. I mentioned the Rasheed Walker thing. Hopefully that stays that way because I think he could be a really good tackle for us if he could just knock that off. Again, the run blocking isn't there, but if he can stay as good of a pass blocker as he's been the last couple of weeks and he's not penalized, as far as I'm concerned, he's an A+ guy, right? Yeah, you can't run block, freaking whatever. I don't know what to do about that, but not worried about it. I think I said everything. I don't remember. Daniel from California.
Hey, Daniel from California.
What's up?
Thinking about the way this year of the NFL is unfolding, years past, the one thing I have a lot of hope and a lot of just faith in with our team is our coaching staff. Because we've seen Matt LaFleur, as time goes on, just get better and really just shore stuff up. Because last year we started off kind of similar, right? Like, not a finished product, making a lot of mistakes, penalties, having to shift guys in and out because they're not sure who the guy is, right? And then by the end of the season, Rasheed Walker's our starting left tackle, right? You know, a million examples of this, right? Where just Matt LaFleur is about incremental improvement, and it's a leap to assume that Halfley's the same way, but just the way he approaches and the way he talks about football, I have faith that this guy can make our defense is a much better unit because he's really like an intellectual about defense, and he's trying to find that balance and really trying stuff out. So I don't know. Clay'd probably be the guy because I haven't watched any scheme stuff, but you know, I think that we have a staff, especially with the variety of position coaches that we now have on defense, that it will get answers to help us move up a little bit in the defensive performance. So yeah, I'm not too worried. I really like what Jordan did. Like, a lot of people don't like how he was playing. It's like, people were dropping stuff. There's a lot of catchable passes, penalties. You know, somebody gets up on you 21-0. It's just, you're going to play hero ball. But I thought everything in the game was fine, and I really have faith with this coaching staff. Matt LaFleur is a top 3 offensive mind, top 5 offensive mind. You know, how much credit you want to give to the other Shanahan guys, I don't know, but he's up there, and we've seen him right the ship. When you have guys like Kevin O'Connell, where you've seen by the end of the season these guys flame out because people figure them out, right? You've seen a few times where by the playoff time the Rams aren't that hot, even though they've had one hot run. So I have faith in LaFleur. He's going to turn it around. I got faith in Halfley. He knows what to say to get me on board, man. I just believe in the guy. So go Pack, go.
It does seem like there are first half teams and second half teams in terms of the season, right? The Packers have been a second half team for the last, the last 2 years. We'll see if the same thing happens this year. I don't know what that is, but I do appreciate, like you said, the coaching staff, Matt LaFleur in particular, and the players. It comes down to the players too. In 2022 and 2023, having the resolve to keep fighting as Matt LaFleur works to kind of figure things out. And that seems to be his way of operating. Is he's got a plan, he goes out with the plan, maybe it's a little bit too high level and guys can't quite execute it, and either he just keeps it high and guys eventually catch up to it, or he makes adjustments as the season goes on. Whatever it is, they tend to get better. And who knows? Maybe it's the more simplified offensive and defensive approaches that get the early results. Just speculating, but yeah, that does seem to be a thing. And we've talked about several of them, Detroit started high, didn't end terribly, but they certainly declined. Minnesota like 2 years ago, or was it? Yeah, it was 2 years ago. Started off real hot, and they were like one of the worst teams in football when the season ended. The Eagles, that and Minnesota, some of the biggest examples of, holy crap, this is a dominant Eagles team, and why is this just the biggest pile of trash in the world when the season ended? So if you're going to be a Packer fan, it seems like right now you're just going to have to be patient. Would love for things to start off just rip-roaring hot. Even if it's not like half the season, how long have we been complaining about week one? The Packers come out flat week one all the time. We always talk about preseason is the problem, this, that, or the other, but it never really holds up. Just for the simple fact that other teams that don't practice don't have this problem, and some people do have the problem, and they practice plenty, and there doesn't seem to be a correlation between when the Packers, had Rodgers and the starters playing compared to when they didn't. It's just it seems to be something else. So it's just been a thing for a while, I think, with the Packers. But again, almost every year the Packers are in the playoffs. Do they win a Super Bowl? No, that's a separate issue, but still, we should know by now, certainly, to exercise patience. And there's really nothing to not be patient about so far. I mean, even as much as I'm frustrated with the defense, the production that the defense has had, despite all the problems, is really impressive. So I'm kind of torn. On one hand, you look at Halfley and like, bro, why is everybody playing worse? Like, maybe not the secondary, which is your specialty, by the way. The secondary is at least as good or better. Everybody else, though, linebackers and defensive tackles and defensive ends, they seem worse to me. But again, it's like, yeah, this thing is not working, but I just call some good plays, and we get a bunch of picks and sacks and turnovers and crazy stuff. It's like, well, that is true. You do that. You do that. We can't pressure, and so you find creative ways to get pressures, and we end up with a lot of pressures and sacks, and that causes turnovers, which is great. And also, if he does figure out how to get pressure from the front four, then this becomes an uber elite, scary, defensive scheme or defense, hopefully. But, as far as the offense, what is there to be unsatisfied with? I mean, I don't necessarily agree with your characterization of how Love played. The thing I hate about the term catchable ball is that we expect receivers to catch pretty much everything. It really doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the passes, and the quality of the passes in the first half were dog crap. In fact, some of those were not catchable. I've never seen so many passes hit receivers in the shoes before. And we know the reason, and again, I'm not worried about it, but it was brutally bad. But we understand why that happened. And we had 2 games without our starting quarterback. We had 1 game with our starting quarterback on a ice skating rink. We had 1 game with our starting quarterback injured and unable to put any weight on his front leg. And we also had some pretty good offensive performances despite those situations. And we are 2-2. So, I mean, we're not even, I guess my point is we're not at the point where we're like, everything's bad, but we should have expectations that it turns around. Everything is not bad. I mean, I think things are there are things that scare the crap out of me. I'm nervous about Jordan because we have not seen him play well 1 game. It was a good second half in that last game, but that was not a good game. And the first week wasn't a good game, and there are excuses for it, but it sucks we're going into week 5, and I have not seen him play a good game yet. So it's got me a little nervous. The defense and all the stuff I talked about there makes me nervous. The receivers kind of being up and down makes me a little bit nervous. There's reasons to be nervous, but there's nothing right now that's happening where you go, this is a bad team, but hopefully it turns around. I don't think that's where we're at. Let's take a break. We'll come back and hear from Trucker Bob. Oh, he's in the truck.
Ryan, this is
he's in the
Trucker
truck.
Bob here.
What's up?
I'm going to jump into this conversation about a field goal kicker.
Sure.
I think we're being the difference between Narvis and Carlson is actually very big.
Yes.
If you look at Narvison's 4 misses, 2 of them hit the upright, and the third one just goes outside the upright. And of course, you had one bad one that was way off. Carlson, when he missed badly. I mean, they were way off. I look at Narvison's misses as very correctable, just some kind of slight adjustment, and 3 of those 4 kicks would have been good. So I'm willing to hang out with Narvison, despite all the criticism and stuff that's being thrown at him. The ability for him to correct.
Can I just bring in one objection, though? It's hard to miss real bad when you're like right in front of the field goal, in front of the goal post, which he basically was on that 37-yarder. But anyways.
He is very small to make those kicks. We got to remember, Mason Crosby didn't hit 80% until his 5th year. I think Narvison could get above 80%, just one small adjustment or correction. And those field goals he's missed, he would be making. Anyways, I wanted to jump in.
In addition to that, as far as the Mason thing, I think that's a reason to keep Anders, who is drafted and has a lot of upside and potential. I don't know that Narvison has that. Narvison had really no pedigree coming in here as this great kicker. He's just one of many guys floating around. And so if we apply it to Narvison, you have to apply it to just about everybody, which is obviously flawed because the vast majority of these guys are not going to have good careers above 80% kicking. Most of them will not, cannot, and will just not be on teams either for very long or just ever again. So I don't know that I'm just going to expect it because Mason did it after however many years. Plus, we already know we have a GM now that is not going to allow that amount of patience. He's not going to let him do that. He maybe can make it through the end of the year before he needs to start clipping him at 80%. Otherwise, he's gone by next year. And again, that's if he can make it. I'm surprised he made it through this week. If he does it again, there's no way. So there will not be that level of patience for him. I don't think there should be that level of patience for him. If you're going to give that level of patience, it should be for a guy that you drafted, not for a guy that you picked up having laid almost no eyes on, have no allegiances to whatsoever. Don't even know why we frickin' picked up the guy, but we did. I think he has a very, very short leash.
In that conversation that we're willing to drop this guy way, way too early. I mean, if he was way wide right, wide left, all short, all over the place,
Can't be short. I wouldn't be short for 37.
But he's not. Those kicks were almost there.
Would, but still.
And it just takes a slight correction to make those kicks good. And I think Narvison can do that. He did have the 50, he drilled a 59-yarder in the preseason, so he kicked a long one. I mean, he can do it.
Let me go look.
So I like this guy. A lot of his kicks go right down the center between the goalposts, and he's 100% on the extra points. So I think he's a far better kicker than Carlson is. Anyways, that's my opinion. And I'm for keeping him and, let him learn the game. He needs live reps in a game to become a good kicker. Anyways, trick him out.
Yeah, I don't think I can get on board with that one. I understand kind of what you're saying as far as, missing and missing, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Missing is missing. So, your claim is more or less that, well, because of that, it'll get corrected. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I mean, he has not had a good game yet. He missed, missing 1 out of 4, I think, through 3 games, and then missing 2 out of 2. His field goal percentage is one of the worst in the entire NFL. Significantly worse than Anders Carlson ever was. And, saying that, yeah, but it was really bad. It's kind of like comparing a guy that had a 47% completion rate, but his bad passes were just a little bit bad and just a little bit out of reach, as opposed to a guy that had like a, 55% or 60% completion rate, but, the passes that he missed went sailing over their heads. I don't know, maybe. And disregard the part about, well, if it goes sailing over the head, then it could be a pick. That's irrelevant to the analogy. It's because that doesn't apply in it's a miss is a miss, right? It is what it is. So I don't know. I think Anders was actually a pretty good field goal kicker. I think he made a good chunk of field goals. Again, he wasn't one of the top field goal kickers, but he wasn't a bad field goal kicker. He made everything, I think, what did I say, under 40 yards. He was 100%. He kind of struggled in the 40-yard range, but had a pretty decent percentage in the 50-yard range. His biggest issue was just the extra points, which is stupid, but if you want to talk about correctable, I can't fathom. It's like, he's a decent field goal kicker. We gotta figure out these extra points. And it's like, yeah, that's not fixable, man. I mean, if he was missing from 60, I can fix that. Missing extra points, I don't know how to help him there. I don't know. But I'm looking at Narveson. I'm seeing a guy that has not had one single good game, just had his worst game. I mean, we don't have a choice but to be patient. But, kind of like I said in yesterday's podcast, having an excuse or a reason doesn't mean everything's going to be okay. Identifying what they're doing wrong doesn't automatically mean, well, now that they know it, which of course they know it, they know what's wrong with just about everything that's going on, doesn't mean it's automatically going to get improved. That's true of probably every kicker. You get a special teams coach to watch a bad kicker, he can tell you why he's a bad kicker. That doesn't mean he can fix him. Again, Wicks not looking the ball into his hands. I mean, this is not some new information for Wicks, and it doesn't automatically mean it's going to get fixed. You hope that it does. But again, there's a lot of guys who have bad habits and do wrong things. And it doesn't mean that you can just coach them into being great. Otherwise, everybody would just be great. So I appreciate your perspective on it as far as feeling good about it. I wish I felt good about it. I do expect him to be better. It's not like I expect him to be 0% for the rest of the season. And I'm sure if he plays the rest of the season, he's going to have good games where he doesn't miss a field goal. At least you would hope so. That's what most kickers do most of the time. They don't miss field goals. But especially if it's under 50 yards, you're expecting a kicker to make it almost all the time. We're kind of setting a really ridiculous standard here where for Narveson, it's like, well, if he makes more than he misses, he had a good day. It's like, no, that shouldn't be the standard, though. That's how you know you don't have a good kicker, when those are the standards you set. But, I mean, either way, again, it doesn't super matter because Anders wasn't a great option. We haven't had a great option in the building as far as I can tell. Greg Joseph seems to be having a pretty, at least he had one good game that everybody saw. I don't think anybody knows what he's done the rest of the season. He's certainly not one of the top kickers in the NFL, but that seems to have been maybe the right decision, that or Anders, because we don't know what Anders would have done because he isn't in the NFL or playing for a team, I mean. Anyways, TJ from Alabama.
Hey, Ryan. TJ from Alabama.
What's up, Mike?
Just calling in. I'm glad that the calls, at least most of the calls, have not been jump off the ledge kind of stuff.
Sure.
And not losing our minds, losing to the Vikes. Overall, I'm feeling pretty good. I think the Vikings probably were the worst matchup almost that we could have had with Jordan coming back.
Yeah.
Just based on, them flying high, a heavy blitz rate, yada, yada, yada. So they may have been like one of the worst matchups we could have had with Jordan coming back. But conversely, I think the Rams may be one of the best matchups we could have for Jordan's second day coming back. Clearly decimated by injuries. Defense sucks. Offense not that great.
Yeah.
As long as we take care of business against the Rams, which I believe we will, all is right with the world, and we'll be fine. If for some reason we lay an egg and the Rams, don't even want to speak that into existence, but then I would have more concerns. But I think the Rams is a really nice matchup for us, and we really should match up well against them. So looking for good things there.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, we need to be the Vikings. We need to be the team that comes into somebody's house. They're down on their luck. Things are not going well. People thought we were going to be good, but we're really struggling. And if we can go in and be the Vikings, and by that I mean just be the team that executes efficiently, makes the least amount of mistakes, play your game. I'm not asking for any heroics because you don't need to be heroic. You just need to be who you are. Give me 100%, right? I understand the actual mathematics, but just figuratively speaking, 100% is perfect. I don't need 110, 120, 150. We just need 100. Just give me your baseline level of play, and we're going to win the game. Don't lose the penalties. Don't lose in terms of turnovers. I'm not even asking for turnovers. I'm just saying don't lose the turnover battle. Don't lose any of these battles. Play your game as well as you generally play, and this is a win. There's no doubt about it. Because you're the better team, and that's the way it goes when you're the better team. Just don't make mistakes, and you're good.
I completely agree with a lot of the sentiment that maybe Jordan shouldn't have started last week. However, with all that said, I do think it was good to get that out of the system. I do think he knocked some rust off. And I think the rust was more so, to me, it looked like in the first half, he was tentative on that leg. Like he was protecting it. He wasn't sure if he could go. But in the second half, either he got more confident in it or he said to hell with it. I'm not sure. But a lot of the stuff in the first half where it looks like he was not going to land on that leg and he was going to play. In the second half, I didn't see that as much. So I think getting that out of his system is a good thing. I don't know what the stats are, and it's probably not something easy that you can look up, so I'm not going to ask you to do it. So I'm just going off of memory, which sucks and is a stupid idea. But it does appear that quarterbacks, even star quarterbacks, coming back after a few-week injury, that first week back is usually not that great. So don't know if that's true or not. It's just that's what's in my recollection. So I really expect Jordan to be much better, Packers to be much better.
Well, I've got one anecdotal piece of evidence for you. Do you remember, and it's not the exact same thing because he was out for longer, do you remember in, 17 when Rodgers got hurt and they brought him back like the last week to see how it went? And it was just the worst ever. It was so bad. Maybe it wasn't the last. Why am I remembering this wrong? I could have swore. So in 2017, he played through week 6 and then he got hurt. They brought him back week 15 against Carolina. He was 26 of 45, 290 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Lots of passes. He threw 45 passes. Jordan threw like 52, 50. A decent amount of yards, 290. I think Jordan was in the 300. 3 touchdowns, which is great. Jordan had 4. And 3 interceptions. He had 1 big-time throw and 3 turnover-worthy plays in that game. Now, granted, he missed 2 months. He missed 8 weeks compared to 2 weeks, but still, I mean, if you're looking for anecdotal evidence about coming back from injury and expecting a high level of play, yeah, that was a rough one.
Pass rush is a little bit of concern, but overall, okay. I think 11-6 is still about right. That's what I thought, and that's kind of where I still think.
Sure.
I think it's going to be a 3-way race to the end. I think the Vikings are not as good as they currently look. I saw some chinks in the armor, but overall, Detroit looking good like expected. And I think the Bears are frauds. I think they're going to suck when they play better teams. That's it. Thanks, Ron. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bears' defense is for real. They ended the season as one of the top defenses. They're starting off the season as a top defense. Despite the in my opinion, the depth of top-tier talent, I'm really impressed with their ability to put together a defense. I mean, they went out and got a good defensive coordinator to be their head coach. But as far as the offense, what do we have faith in? I mean, Caleb looked better. He didn't look good. I mean, every issue that they've been complaining about still exists. So, yeah, maybe everything got fixed at once. Suddenly their offensive coordinator that sucks is good now. Their quarterback who sucks is good now. Their offensive line that sucks is good now. Their running back that sucks is good now. Maybe they had a game that they sucked slightly less and the Rams are terrible, and that's what happened. But we'll see. Maybe they continue to get better. Who knows? Garrett.
To quote Peyton Manning, what are we talking about? A kicker? We're talking about an idiot kicker.
Okay.
Yeah. We could go back, Ryan, to the game against San Francisco. And yeah, the team had inexcusable mistakes. Loved playing hero ball, throwing interception. But that game against San Francisco was winnable if Saunders had made the kick. Jump forward to the game against the Eagles. Again, a missed field goal quite possibly cost us that game. fast forward to this last Sunday. Yeah, the red zone offense is still deplorable. But again, 2 missed field goals ends up being the difference in this game. And Love would not have been forced into, again, trying to play hero ball when it wasn't necessary. I'm going to have to eat my words and say,
well, again, that was the difference in the game. There are also several other things. I mean, Jordan Love's interceptions were the difference in that game. The, turnovers were the difference in that game. The penalties were there's a lot of things that were the difference in the game, not just one thing. Secondly, Jordan playing hero ball does not come down to the field goals. It comes down partially to the defense not being able to stop, the offense being completely incapable of scoring despite having many opportunities to do so. And even still, the hero ball thing didn't need to happen anyways. Like we pointed out, a lot of those throws were on like 2nd and 8. You don't need to throw into the end zone in triple coverage. And one of those passes, there was no offensive player there. Just launched it into the end zone. Nobody was there. Defender's like, I'll take it, I guess. So I want to continue to let you make your point. I just want to clarify these things, that there were a lot of people making a lot of mistakes, and I don't want to let Jordan off the hook as though, well, he just had to play that bad. He had to throw it at people's feet. He had to throw it into triple coverage. He had to just give the game away and turn the ball over 3 times because our kicker missed 2 kicks.
Beauty just crapped the bed on getting GM of the year, executive of the year. This kicker situation is just unraveling before our eyes.
It's ugly.
I'm sick about it. I mean, I am not going to place all the blame on this kicker because the penalties are inexcusable. The missile mistakes are inexcusable. This team is really beginning to show that they have not played in the preseason, and clearly they're...
Again, I can't with the preseason thing. This is week 4. They didn't play in the preseason, but they did play week 1, and they played week 2, and they played week 3. There's no way we can use the preseason as an excuse anymore. How is one game in the preseason going to make you good at football in week 1, but 3 games in the regular season doesn't make you ready in week 4? That doesn't make sense. We cannot use the preseason excuse. That has to stop.
Not practicing up to snuff, in my opinion. If Jordan Love didn't get any live snaps last week up to that game,
right,
then that's on the coach. Because hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, I would love to have seen what Willis could have done in that game, but Love clearly did not look ready.
He wasn't.
I was thinking at the halftime, and I hate to admit this, I'm like, sit the guy down, spare him from any more, hits, and just put Willis in and let him play cleanup for the rest of the game. Because
I thought about that too. I have a feeling, although they probably realized they made by they I mean Matt LaFleur made a terrible mistake. At that point, it comes down to optics, because you're now benching Jordan Love for Malik Willis, and think about what that's going to do. I mean, seriously, it's not even just optics. I mean, what does that do to your locker room to give up hope in Jordan Love and to put in Malik, who's probably still going to lose the game? I mean, you're putting him in an unwinnable situation. That comeback only happens with Jordan Love. It's not going to happen with Malik. No offense to Malik, but I mean, it's just when you look at how he's built compared to how Jordan's gunslinger, right? He's going to go out there and sling it, and sometimes it blows up in your face. Sometimes you go out and, 30 points like it's nothing. Fly down the field and score a touchdown in 90 seconds. That's a Jordan Love thing. But again, it's going to be the national media cycle. Is Jordan Love done? And what does that do to, I mean, it's going to be ridiculously awful. And ultimately, it's going to be bad for Jordan, and it should be on the coach. Let Jordan play, and you, Matt LaFleur, need to take it on the chin. It's the bottom line. I mean, he should not have played, period. He wasn't ready. He didn't practice. He didn't feel comfortable on his leg. I mean, these are things that should have been established rather than doctor said he's okay. Jordan says, yeah, put me in, coach. And he goes, okay, let's go do this. That's not the standard. Jordan doesn't tell you what to do. The doctors didn't tell you have to play him. They just said he's medically cleared to play. You said he needs to be 100%. He wasn't. You didn't go out there and watch him be incapable of putting weight on that leg. And that's probably part of the reason why he needed practice, so that you could have observed it. You could have let him practice after being cleared and said, okay, yeah, that's not great. But, again, at the end of the day, we got through it relatively unscathed. There's still some people out there, I saw Vikings fans out there like, wow, paid all that money for that. Shut up, idiot. God, nobody invited you to the conversation. Get out of my face. Anyways, please continue.
Had already found us out. And I usually don't do that. But that game, he just did not look right in the first half.
No.
So, man, this has been a crap sandwich for the beginning of the week. After 2 weeks in a row, we've had a backup win against, honestly, not great teams.
Mm-hmm.
But this team was beatable, clearly beatable. And they still can't put a game together where they're almost mistake-free, penalty-free. It keeps biting them in the ass, and it pisses me off.
That was perfect 3 minutes. I thought we'd have to get to your part two. That was great timing. The heck was I going to say? Oh, here's another thought. We talked about how this was a collective effort to lose the game, and you're right, this was a beatable team. So again, not to say it was a bad team. I thought they did a good job. They played well. They looked good. But obviously, when you come within 2 points after just crapping all over your shoes in the first half, there's no choice but to call it a winnable game. I think in that situation, we've seen this before. What happened when Malik was in? The team dug deep and rallied around Malik. Where was the team rallying around Jordan? Again, I'm not trying to excuse Jordan. He played poorly. But this is one of those situations where we need guys to really step up. We need the offensive line to give him time. We need wide receivers to dig those things off their shoelaces. And we need the defense to realize, the offense is struggling. We got to step up. And nobody did that. The defense let the Vikings drive down the field. They're dropping interceptions. They're giving up points. They're not giving the ball back to Jordan. Aside from after they score, it gets punted to him. The receivers are dropping passes. Penalties are still a massive problem. There was no collective rally. There was no point at which people got together and said, look, we got to do this. Like, Jordan's back. His leg is hurting. He's not throwing well. We have to step up. This is on us now. It's almost like they rallied around Malik, and now that Jordan's back, they're like, Jordan's got this now. Now I can relax. Again, that was the whole thing with when Rodgers was there. You just felt like everybody put it on Rodgers. As long as Rodgers is there, we can play at 80%, and it's cool. We can kind of coast. That ball's going to hit me right in the hands. Like, everything's fine. That's why I said the weirdest phenomenon I've ever seen in my life is when Aaron Rodgers would go down with an injury and suddenly our defense stopped playing well. It just gave up. I mean, they put so much on these quarterbacks, whether they rally, whether they play good, whether they play bad. I mean, it's just go play football at your best. And yeah, go play for each other. Go rally around people. Always assume the game's on you. But especially when things are getting down, who's stepping up? Who's that voice to say, listen, it's on you right now? Matt LaFleur should have gone over to the wide receivers. Jordan, go over there real quick with your quarterback coach and sitting down and be like, look, I effed up, guys. Like, this was a bad decision. I should have put in Malik. I didn't realize he's going to be this messed up. His knee's hurting him. Like, I need you to go and do this for Jordan. He can't put weight on his leg. He's struggling to get the ball to you. If it's anywhere near you, grab it. You have to go up to the offensive line. Guys, I effed up. It's bad. I shouldn't have put him in. He's already kind of hobbled. Like, he can't put weight on his leg. This is a big deal. I can't bench him. He's going to play. You got to protect him. Please, give me your best game just today. Go over to the defense. Guys, I effed up. I shouldn't have played Jordan. He's not looking great. He can't throw the ball. He can't put weight on his leg. It's on you, guys. You got to rally around Jordan. You got to carry him this week. You got to carry me this week, all right? But there just wasn't. It was, go over to the kicker. Dude, I effed up. I need you to dig deep and make sure you don't miss any field goals because this is coming within the margins here. Instead, it was just everything. Again, we pile on the kicker and there's no reason not to. I mean, he clearly was off. But it was everybody. Penalties all over the place. Drop passes, bad throws, missed kicks. It was everybody. All right, let's take our final break. We'll come back and hear Garrett's second call. This one ended at 1:46. Shame on you. That was one of the best, perfectly 3-minute calls I've ever gotten. Anyways, we'll be right back.
McDuffie couldn't catch a cold if he was babysitting 1,000 children at a preschool.
Dang. If anybody's got kids, you realize you put 4 kids in a room together, everybody's getting sick. I don't know what they do to each other, but that's, I would assume 4 or more and 100%. 4 healthy kids, put them in a room together, take them home, and you have just spread a virus throughout an entire state. It's going to hit you. It's going to hit your friends. It's going to hit people you talk to on the phone. All of a sudden, you're talking to your buddy like, bro, we got something. 2 days later, like, bro, I think I caught it. I don't know how, but I got it all the way over here, 4 counties away. That's a deep burn there, Garrett.
That could have changed everything in the game. So, yeah, there's a lot of blame that could go around pointing fingers at people who really, really could have stepped up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem. This feels like all across the board, nobody's significantly stepping up, except one person, in my opinion, Reed.
Yeah.
Whatever he's eating for breakfast, everybody needs to start eating it.
Exactly.
Whatever he's doing for game prep, they need to start doing, because he seems like the only one balling out right now. So at least there's some fight in somebody, because a lot of these guys, I'm not seeing it. It's horrible to watch when you have guys on the front line not getting any pressure on a quarterback that's got a bum knee that can stand back there and just throw the ball wherever he wants. I don't get it. Frustration is at 100% right now with me with this team. Can these guys turn it around? Yes, I believe they can turn it around. They have got the talent. They got the ability. They have shown that they can do it. But can they do it consistently? They're starting out just like they did last year. Slow start, and then they turn it on. Then something clicks. For once, I would like to see them start the season with it clicking, because right now it is not clicking. Somebody needs to get their head out of their butt and figure out what is going on, because I don't know what I would say is going on.
And again, to some degree, through 4 weeks, we have not had a normal game. We just haven't. The Brazil game was a disaster as far as the field conditions. Then we had a backup quarterback through 2 weeks, which we won and played some good football. And then in week 4, we had a quarterback that was injured. It doesn't excuse everybody, but that was a big issue, that we had a quarterback that just couldn't throw to anybody accurately. So I feel like it's different than in past years where we have our full football team. There's injuries. Christian Watson obviously was injured for most of the last 2 years, early, late, whatever. Romeo Dobbs went out for a little while for a period of time there. But, I mean, for the most part, you have your quarterback, you have your team, you have your philosophy, you're running everything that you want to run, you have the majority of your team in place, and you're just not a good football team through the first half of the year. That's not what we've been seeing. That's not to say that that's not what would have been and what may continue to be. I don't know. The point is, I have no idea what this team is going to be once everything is just together and working. We have not seen that yet. Hopefully, this is going to be the first week that happens. I don't know if Jair is going to play. I don't know if Jordan's going to be healthy. He had his first full participant yesterday. It's yesterday for you too. We'll see. I don't know. But hopefully that is the situation we're in. Uncle Rico, what's up?
Yo, Brian.
Yo.
It's your Uncle Rico.
How you doing?
Hey, I wanted to call in. I had called in Sunday morning because I was frustrated, and I don't know if you covered that at all. I haven't got that far, but I wanted to call in before it got to be real old news, because I did call on Sunday, and from what I understand, I think you skipped those calls. So I wanted to talk about our running back getting a $45,000 fine for lowering his head, I guess. And apparently he's a repeat offender, if I understood that right. He previously got 2.
It's hard to be a repeat offender when you're not an offender. It's like there is a tactic that happens, and I know it happens in politics because I've heard a politician say that they do it. But they do this thing where they lie. Right? Imagine that, right? Politicians do this thing where they do it a lot. But the whole thing is you say something that isn't really true. And then you say it again, 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 and then somebody calls you out and they're like, well, that's not true. That didn't happen. It's like, okay, well, look, maybe it didn't, but look at how many times we've been talking about. Look at how many instances there have been. Yeah, you made them all up. You piece of garbage. It was a lie when you said it now. It was a lie when you said it last time and the time before that and the time before that and the time before that. You can't just add up all the fake stuff and be like, okay, this one isn't true, but there's 9 other instances. No, there's not. You're full of crap. This is a stupid rule. He's not trying to kill people with his head. He's lowering his shoulder to run forward. It's hard to do that, but also make sure that your head, which is leading the way and has got this big giant helmet thing on there, doesn't contact anybody who's also lowering their head to make a tackle, which is what you teach people to do. You lower your shoulder. You get low. So 2 people are getting low, and if their helmets happen to touch, you get a $45,000 fine. Again, I've said it 1,000 times. At some point, we have to let football be football. You just have to do it. And if you can't stomach it, you have to get a new job. This is football. Well, look at the horrible thing like Brett Favre with the Parkinson's and all that. Look at all the other traumatic. Yes, that's terrible. That's what happens to some football players. That's what's going to continue to happen to some football players. And if you're not okay with that, you have 2 options. Shut down football or leave and let somebody run it that can handle that. There is no way to have football that does not result in some of those things. It's impossible. And all these attempts, people, oh, that's not true. Well, we have to do something. I hate the we have to do something, people. It's the most obnoxious thing in the world. Well, we have to do something. No, doing something is what leads to all these problems. Doing something almost always leads to not fixing the problem, but just introducing a bunch of crap, a bunch of somethings that just creates new problems that suck. That's all, and that's all this is. We're just adding more things and we're changing everything and we're doing all these things. We're not fixing anything. As evidenced by the fact that he just get a $45,000 fine for doing what? Exactly what it is you're trying to take out of the game. Well, I thought you took it out of the game. Why is it still happening? You think a $45,000 fine is going to fix anything? What's he supposed to do now? How does he now not do that? You can't not do it. So you're just finding him for the sake of finding him to save face because, well, we have to do something. No, you don't. Yeah, the something that you should do is the right thing. And the right thing is to recognize that this is football and he didn't do anything wrong, right? There are instances we've seen. There was that one like in college where a guy, you can see like he like used his head as an arrow and speared a guy in the side of the head. Like, okay, that is vicious and horrible. And that person should be punished, and that video should be spread far and wide, and he should be made an example of. A guy playing football the way you're supposed to play football, going up against another guy who's playing football the way he's supposed to play football, and their helmets touch, and both of them are completely fine, and they get up, and the guy helps him up, and everything's... That is not... I hate it so much.
$22,500 fines or something like that. Anyway, I just don't really get it. I mentioned in my first call we need to start a GoFundMe for the guy.
Yep.
Everybody throws in $1 in Packer fandom, and we'll have plenty of money to cover his fines. But you can't lower your head when you're running the ball. What are you supposed to do? Just get tackled? A spin move.
They want everybody to do what they're trying to coach out of A.J. Dillon. They want him to be an upright runner. Run with your chest. Run chest first. That way you generate zero power and you go down immediately on first contact. There's no power in it. The entire reason that guys like Josh Jacobs are as good as they are, the reason Gutekunst likes the 5'10", 225-pound guys is the low center of gravity. They can get low and they're big and they're dense and they're powerful and they can drive forward. And the NFL is saying, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to stand up straight and run forward. Run with your chest. Don't run with your head. Run with your gut. Stick that gut out and go, baby. Because you cannot get low and lower your pads and drive forward without your head being at the front of things. I mean, just think about the whole line of scrimmage, like the goal line stands or the tush push thing. What is that? You've got 10, let's just call it 10 guys against 10 guys, and what are they? They're getting as low as they possibly can, helmets out front, slamming into the person in front of them as hard as they possibly can. That at its core is football. Do you know how much force is being generated? Do you know how many helmets are colliding in there? Should they not do that? Should we not have anybody down in a 3-point stance? Maybe we should just have everybody standing up. It's like backyard flag football or something. Everybody just stands up and we'll just do 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000 before you can rush. I don't know. I mean, again, if this is what people want, just go do it. Go start a league. Go start a flag football league. You'll feel much happier about it. And by the way, flag football doesn't have pads, and they shouldn't. The pads, as I've said before, are a main reason for all the injuries. It's one of the biggest reasons. But we have to do something people started putting pads on them, and then they started making them more and more and more and more and more so that people can't feel anything, which means what? People are going to deliberately lead with their head because they don't feel the impact. Do you think anybody is going to try to lead with their face? You see somebody running 20 miles an hour, are you going to throw your face into their head? No, because you don't have a helmet on. You're going to move your head. The last thing you want is impact with your head. You're going to protect yourself. That's why they have leagues without pads, and those guys don't get hurt. But we have to do something people introduced solutions, which ended up being problems and creating more problems because we have to do something. We just can't do nothing. We have to do something. Yeah, you did do something. You made it worse. I don't know why people think something is automatically a good thing. Something is just something. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, could be a neutral thing. And if you're constantly introducing problems, then actually doing nothing was the better solution. Freaking stupid nonsense. Anyway, sorry. Please continue.
Okay, but sometimes you got to lower your head and get a couple of yards. The guy in front of you, I don't know, you can't let go of the ball and push him out of the way. I don't know. It's frustrating. If a running back can't lower his head and file for a couple of extra yards, it's pretty sad.
You can't play
anymore.
football.
But I guess I better get used to it because that's the way it's going. But I just wondered if anybody had any comments on that. Whatnot. All right. Uncle Rico got to go make some money. Go Pack, go.
We'll make some money, Uncle Rico. I got to get out of here, too. We are over the hour mark, so you guys have a good rest of your day. I think we did pretty good dent in the calls. I don't know why that became a tongue twister in my head. But you guys have a good rest of your night. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.